Hi, yeah, my name's Dan Cook and I'm the creative director.
Hi, I'm James Prancard. I'm the lead developer of Mini World Games.
And hi, I'm Matt Merson, who is technical lead at Rancon.
Brilliant. So could you tell us a bit about your roles at Rancon and what Rancon does?
Sure. Rancon actually consists of three businesses. So it's Rancon, Mini World Games and ClickDebt. Rancon is mainly responsible for apps, a lot of financial and business-orientated apps. It does release games also. Mini World Games is purely games, and ClickDebt is a debt collection and enforcement app, which is its own business, and it's just that one product. So I'm creative director. I'm also in charge of new business, and the business is currently going through a phase of growth, and a lot of that responsibility is mine. But also, just on a day-to-day basis, making sure that everything functions nicely and looks good. My background is in design, so what Jon has brought me into the business for is to ensure that the things don't just that our products don't just work brilliantly, but they also look, great as well. I think with the advent of Apple and lots of people owning Apple devices, I think people are more and more visually aware. And I think Jon, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, he said to me, people are more and more visually aware, so our products can't just work brilliantly and do what they need to do. They need to look good as well. So that's part of my role.
Yeah, I'm a lead developer of Mini World Games. I basically program most of the day. And I also help out with all the other developers and make sure that they're on track and are programming in the correct way. Yeah.
And as technical lead, I do a lot of developing, the same as James, and helping out with the development team. But I'm also in charge of managing the direction in terms of all the technical decisions we have to make that the company makes to make sure we're always going forward in the right direction.
Great, that's excellent. And so Dan's joined more recently, but
yeah,
if the guys could tell us a bit about the history of Rancon or your understanding of it as well, Dan, and also where the name came from. It's quite an unusual name.
Yeah. So the name actually comes from random control, and Jon put the words together to make Rancon. It's actually also a town in France, we found out.
Nice.
And I think it was originally from his. So Jon, our boss, used to be a student, made a student film, and Rancon was actually in the student film, and he wanted to make a bad guy company name. Like in James Bond, you'd have the bad guy with a really ambiguous name that could do anything but does everything.
Yeah.
Rancon came from that in his student film, and he wanted a company name that could do anything. So that's where the name came from.
Taking over the world is still in our mission statement.
Yes.
Okay. That's something that goes on in your boardrooms is taking over the world then.
Yeah. That's booked in for 5:00 this afternoon.
Excellent.
Yeah, as you say, it's an unusual name, but yeah, I think the bit about random control, the RAN and the CON from control is a nice thing. Two good words to put together to come up with Rancon as well.
Yeah, it's very gaming orientated as well.
Yeah, it's got a good ring to it.
Mm. And so I looked into some of the history of Rancon, and was it sort of designing websites, that sort of thing?
It was, yeah. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah. At about 2000, the company started, and we're doing a lot of websites and other interactive things for the web, and that's where the industry was at that time. And we eventually moved into looking more at mobile technologies as that started becoming big, and now. Yeah, we still do a lot of interactive things for the web, but mostly we're working on mobile games and apps now.
Yeah.
We just kind of moved with the demand of the industry.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the main focus now is gaming and apps at Rancon.
Yeah, I think so. That's what we're making the most of at the moment, anyway. So.
Yeah. It is. And what we have done in the past, actually, and what we're looking at doing more of in the future, is we've identified it as quite a good revenue stream, is white label work for exhibitions. So kind of data. It varies on what we've done in the past, actually, but it could be like a game, for example, for an exhibition stand. And generally the game, let's say it's a game, it isn't necessarily anything to do with the brand or the company that have got the exhibition stand, but it's more about generating interest for the stand itself. So it's kind of digital content for exhibitions is another route we're looking at.
It's interesting. I saw when I was reading the information, it's about almost digital solutions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where you're... an app can be so many different things now. And have you found, is diversification key to a successful business? For our students, is that something they should take on board?
I think so. From my point of view and my background, diversity, and I run my own business as well, and I'm quite diverse in that business. I only work at Rancon 3 days a week. I think for this industry, I'm learning that diversity is really important. As we've kind of explained to you, Rancon isn't just games. Miniworld Games is games, but Rancon does a variety of different things. As I've just said, we're looking at pushing the content for exhibitions a lot more. But some of the clients we work with really do range massively. We've just done a dog grooming game, but we've also... Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. It's really good, and it was.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. It's really different to what was out there, and we tried to make it different. We did it in 3D, so that was a bit different. It was tough, but it turned out brilliantly. But then we do through Rancon, we do really kind of complex. I know the phrase at the moment is big data, but big data kind of. Complicated apps for these kind of multinational companies. So it is really, really varied. Got anything to add to that, guys?
In terms of actually the development process as well, the fact that we do financial apps, on the other end of it we do games, actually they both benefit each other. There are things that we can bring to doing a financial app because we do games that make that financial app unique and above any of the others out there, and vice versa, which is quite surprising. You wouldn't think that doing the financial app will benefit your game, but it really can do.
in layman's terms, Matt, is that because you'll take code from a game and use it within a financial app? What's the crossover? Sometimes,
but a lot of the time it's just the process of thought that you do when approaching a financial app. Yeah. You can then apply that to a game, which you wouldn't have done if you hadn't had to go through that process for the financial app.
Yeah.
So the wider understanding of large amounts of data and what you can do with it can cross over from a dog grooming game to a banking app, which is
it can be really surprising. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So I just wanted to get some insight into the running of the studio. So what do you typically do on a daily basis in a regular week? How does the team work together? I mean, obviously there's lots of different factions. So how does it work as a larger studio?
Well, the first really important thing is we always get in and then we have coffee. That's really important that everyone in the office knows how to make good coffee.
That's in the contracts, I think.
That is
absolutely,
contract.
We've got a very good coffee machine. Yeah.
And then we go into stand-up, which is our 10 o'clock meeting. We have it at 10 o'clock, so we make sure everyone gets in 4:10 on time, because everyone's normally a little bit late and have a little bit different hours. And our stand-up, we use something called Kanban. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No, I've not heard of that, I don't think.
It's, what is it called? It's
an agile.
It's an agile process. It's a process of working, and it's a board that we have, which splits all of our work into different categories, phases. So we'd have the phases that we have are to do, working, testing, review, and complete. And you'd have a project like a dog grooming app, and we'd be working on little tasks, and we move them across the stages.
So the idea is that from looking at this board, you can get a good idea of what state the project is in, and who's working on what small parts of that project. And we do this even if even if I'm not working on something that James is working on, we'll still discuss this in front of each other because I might actually have some input into what he's doing. I might be able to help him out with something. And we do this every morning, regardless of what everyone's doing, just so everyone knows where everyone else in the company is. And it can be really useful.
It's also good to get different insight on people who don't even do the same job. So the stuff you were doing the other week about Rancon's portfolio or creds. Yeah, that was really
that's a pertinent point. We all stand up around this board, and the meeting is led by Emma, who's the lead producer. And as James just said, I'm working on something at the moment. It's company credentials, basically. It's a piece of design work. And that board covers not just what we're developing in terms of apps and games, but what everybody's doing. And it's a massive board. It's a really good visual representation and a good way of tracking work and seeing who's working on what and what phase of its life it's in, if you like. And actually, Harry, I thought, wherever you now later on publish this interview, do you have facility for pictures? Because I could take a picture of it. It's quite a good thing to see.
Yes, please. Yeah, definitely. We're going to put it out on an audio interview, and we have to do a blog piece as well. So we can do all sorts of things like that. So yes, please.
Yeah, it'd be quite a good insight, I think. So as we touched on, we use Agile Planning and Scrum Poker. Can you guys talk a bit about that?
Planning poker is when so we'll get a new piece of work in, and we won't know yet how hard it is for developers to make it. So we get together and have cards in between 1 and 8, but they're in is it Fibonacci sequence?
It's in some sort of sequence. But basically, there are some numbers missing.
Yeah, so you have to really, and each value of the number is how hard the task is. So we all kind of guess how hard this process will be, and that will give us a good estimate on how long it will take in time to do.
Interesting.
So all the developers will sit around a table, and we won't discuss what we think. We'll just show it, and then if there's a big difference or a disagreement, you have to discuss why there is a disagreement there, and the idea is that through that discussion you'll come to some sort of agreement.
But it's interesting because someone might put a 1, which means it's really easy, and someone might put an 8, and then you'll realise that actually the person who put a 1 has done this already, and you don't need to do it again. So little things like that become really important.
And this process as well, it actually is a really good way of separating out the project into what we call stories. So we're stripping the project down to the smallest possible to-do list, basically, and rating each one of those to-dos. And that's a really useful process to do at the very beginning of the project.
The idea as well, each post-it note on our Kanban board, which goes through the stages, has a number, and then we can track how many points we get through a week, and we can track our progress as a team and efficiency. And from that we can estimate how much we can do by the next week, which is really useful as well.
So it's a management tool which helps you break up the time, and you can work out exactly how much work you can take on, and are you hitting your deadlines? It's also good for getting realistic estimates, because normally I would say, that would take a day, and it would actually developers are usually they always think they can do more than they can actually do. And it normally takes it to be 2 or 3 days. So once you figure out how much you can do in a week, the notes don't lie, and then it's.
Do we also, kind of related to this, do we also have like a store of code to reuse that speeds things up later on for other developments? So we have our own private repository, and every time we're programming, what I'm trying to encourage in the team, that if you're coding something that you're planning to throw away, you're not doing it right. You should always be programming something that you can actually reuse again later on. And sometimes it may actually make a project longer because you have to do that, but it will save you time in the long run, is the theory, because you can then reuse that code regardless. And we've actually built up a lot of libraries now for a whole range of different functionality, and we're reusing them constantly, and not just reusing, but we're continually developing them as well. Someone may think, I'd like this library to do this, and then just add the feature in,
and then because it's all saved in one place, the next time someone else uses that code, that new feature is in there as well. And it really helps with collaborative programming to do this.